Have you ever been trapped somewhere so isolated, so buried by snow, that you began to question if you were really alone? Tonight's story, Beneath the Snow, takes us deep into a haunted cabin where the silence hides something far more terrifying. If you love psychological horror and haunted cabin tales, don't forget to subscribe and drop your theory in the comments. What do you think lives beneath the floorboards? I hadn't seen snow like that in years. Thick, slow-falling flakes, the kind that blurred the world into a silent, white void. The kind of snow that swallows sound and keeps secrets. The drive up to the cabin had taken nearly 5 hours from Denver. The last stretch was nothing but winding mountain roads, barely plowed and flanked by frozen trees that leaned in like silent sentinels. I didn't see a single other car. No animals, either. Just the crunch of my tires over ice and the rising hum of static on the radio. I should have turned back when the signal cut out. But I didn't, because the letter said it was mine now. The cabin, the land, everything beneath it. My mother had died 6 months earlier. We weren't close. In fact, I hadn't spoken to her in almost a decade. A few vague childhood memories, some old birthday cards I never replied to, and that was it. But the will was clear. The cabin in the Rockies belonged to me now. No explanations, no attachments, just a single note clipped to the deed that read, in her handwriting, "If you go, go alone." I parked the Jeep just before the snow got too deep and hiked the last half-mile with my pack, cursing under my breath as the wind picked up. My boots broke through the crust of snow with every step. The cabin stood at the edge of a frozen clearing, wrapped in mist and shadow. It was smaller than I expected. 2 stories, built from rough-hewn logs gone gray with time, with a steep pitched roof and a metal chimney already dusted white. No lights, no footprints. The front door groaned when I pushed it open. Inside smelled like cedar and cold ash. The fireplace hadn't been used in months, maybe longer. I flipped the old light switch. Nothing. Either the lines were dead or the generator was out. Probably both. I unpacked a flashlight, then started a fire the old-fashioned way, matches and prayer. The flames took slowly, casting flickering shadows over the walls. I glanced around. Everything was neat, frozen in time. A kettle still sat on the stove. A rocking chair faced the window. On the far wall, above the mantel, hung an old photo in a warped wooden frame. My mother, maybe 30 years younger, standing in front of this same cabin, her expression unreadable. I moved upstairs. There were 2 bedrooms. One was empty, just a bed, a wardrobe, and a layer of dust so thick I could write my name in it. The other was locked. Back downstairs, I noticed a small desk tucked beneath the stairs. Inside were notebooks, dozens of them, all the same style, leather-bound, yellowed pages. The first one I opened was dated nearly 20 years ago. Every page was covered in tight, slanted handwriting. My mother's. Some were observations, the weather, dates, times. Others were drawings. Strange ones. Roots curling like fingers. Spirals. Tunnels, something that looked like a spine buried under layers of earth. I heard it that night, not the wind, not the creaking of old wood, something else. It came just after 3 a.m., a soft, steady sound, like fingernails dragging along the underside of the floorboards. Slow, measured, not scurrying like a mouse. No, this was deliberate. I held my breath and listened as it moved from one side of the living room to the other, then stopped. And the silence that followed felt heavier than the noise. The snow had closed in by morning. Whiteout conditions. I opened the door to a wall of white nearly shoulder high. The generator was buried. No cell signal. No internet. The landline was dead. I was, in every meaningful way, trapped. Part of me welcomed it. I'd come here to get away, hadn't I? To escape the noise of everything: deadlines, people, expectations. I was supposed to illustrate a new field guide this winter. Rare alpine plants. Solitude was supposed to help. Instead, I found rot. The floorboards by the fireplace were stained. Not with blood, exactly. Something darker. Oilio. I knelt to touch it, and it would twitch beneath my fingers. Just once. Like something shifted beneath it. I fell back. Heart racing. My mind scrambled for logic. Ground thaw, old piping, unstable support beams. All plausible. All wrong. I dug through the notebooks for answers. One entry stood out. No date. Just a sentence. It doesn't like the cold, but it knows I'm here. That night, the sound came again. Louder this time. Then a voice, so faint I wasn't sure I heard it at all. It whispered my name. I stopped sleeping, not because I couldn't, but because every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. The sound was never random, never frantic. It moved in long, patient strokes beneath the floorboards, like someone tracing their fingers in the dirt under the house. Back and forth, waiting. At first, I told myself it was the wood contracting in the cold. Maybe the house was shifting, old beams settling, rodents even. Anything to keep me from thinking what I was actually thinking, that something under me was awake. But on the third night, I felt it again. Not just a sound this time. Movement. Real, physical movement. I'd fallen asleep on the couch near the fireplace, wrapped in blankets, the last of the fire glowing dim red. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up to a rhythmic thumping, faint, distant, but deliberate. I looked down and saw the coffee table tremble slightly, and then a single floorboard beneath my feet lifted, just a hair, maybe less than half an inch, and dropped again, like a breath. I didn't scream. I should have, but I didn't. I stayed absolutely still, because in that moment, I wasn't sure that reacting wouldn't make it worse. There was something about the silence afterward, like it was listening too. I spent the next morning tearing through the cabin, looking for access beneath the floor. Crawl space, hatch, anything. But there was nothing. The house sat low to the ground. The snow around the perimeter was undisturbed. No tunnels, no animal tracks, just a strange circular patch on the west side of the house where the snow never seemed to stick. It looked melted, but that made no sense. It was sub-zero outside. Inside, I started to notice something else. The temperature near the center of the living room floor was warmer than the rest of the cabin. Subtle, but constant. I pressed my hand flat to the boards and felt it. Heat. Not like a furnace. More like body heat. I pulled up one of the planks. What I found wasn't insulation or dirt. It was stone, smooth, almost black, and carved. Not in any language I recognized. Symbols, spirals, teeth, lines intersecting like maps. The kind of markings you don't find beneath homes unless someone put them there on purpose. I didn't sleep that night either. The storm hadn't let up. I'd lost count of how many days I'd been stuck inside. 5? 6? I started reading the notebooks again, searching for anything I'd missed. There was one, different from the others, thinner, bound in red twine, tucked behind a loose panel in the desk. Its contents were less coherent, less observational, more desperate. My mother had written about the warmth under the frost, about a pulse that moves beneath memory and something older than words, waiting for the last of us to come home. The last entry was short. I couldn't destroy it. Not after what I saw. I tried, but it sees us. It sees us all, and now it sees her. I dropped the notebook. My pulse thundered in my ears. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I opened my eyes again, it was morning, or what passed for morning in that endless gray blur outside. I sat up, groggy, and saw that something, had placed another one of the notebooks on the table in front of me. The leather was newer, clean, my mother's handwriting, but it wasn't one I remembered reading before. I opened it and saw my name, repeated over and over. Emma, 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 Emma. The ink changed, going from tight and controlled to scrawled and jagged. Then on the last page, you have to feed it before it wakes. I threw the book across the room. It struck the wall and slid to the floor, pages fluttering. I backed into the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife I could find. I didn't know what I planned to do with it. Stab the floor? Slash at air? I just needed to hold something real. That's when I saw the rug. It was an old woven thing, faded and fraying at the corners. It had been there since I arrived, but I hadn't thought twice about it. Until now, because now it was moving. Just barely. I stepped forward and pulled it back. Beneath it, hidden in the floorboards, was a trapdoor. Thick wood, iron latch, bolted shut. I stared at it for a long time. I don't know how long. It didn't make sense. There was no indication on the exterior of the cabin that a cellar or basement even existed. The walls were solid. The cabin sat directly on the earth, but here it was. My hands trembled as I reached for the latch. It didn't budge. Locked tight. Then I remembered the chain I wore around my neck, the key that had come with the cabin. I slid it into the lock. It fit perfectly. When I turned it, the iron clicked, and the door lifted with a long, breathy creak, as if the cabin itself had exhaled. A gust of warm air rose from the dark below, smelling of soil and copper. I leaned over the edge and aimed my flashlight down. Stairs. Old. Stone. Descending into complete blackness, and something at the bottom moved. Then a voice, soft, familiar, and impossible. Emma, come down. It was my mother's voice. But I knew it wasn't her. I didn't go down. Not that night. Instead, I bolted the trapdoor shut, threw the rug back over it, and backed away like a child avoiding a monster under the bed. I spent the next hour pressed against the cabin wall, knife in hand, staring at the floor as if it might breathe again. But it didn't. The quiet returned. The kind of quiet that doesn't comfort you. The kind that stretches, that waits, that feels like a trap about to spring. I didn't dare sleep. I started pacing. I flipped through the notebooks again. I reread every scrap of writing my mother had left, hoping to find some clue, some anything that might explain what the hell this thing was, why she would leave it to me, why she hadn't destroyed it, why it whispered like her voice. Instead, I found something worse. A passage I must have overlooked, scribbled at the bottom of a weather log. It doesn't want to be free. It wants to be known. That chilled me more than anything else, because I think, deep down, I'd been holding on to the fantasy that this thing, whatever it was something primitive, a parasite, a hungry, buried thing that needed containment. But that sentence changed everything. It meant thanks. It wants. And it had waited all this time for someone like me. By morning, The snow had stopped. For the first time in days, I saw the sun, pale and cold, but sunlight nonetheless. I rushed outside, nearly slipped on the ice, and dug frantically at the Jeep, clearing snow from the windshield, the tires, the engine. It wouldn't start. I screamed, punched the steering wheel until my knuckles bruised. Then I saw something in the side mirror. A figure, standing at the edge of the woods. I turned. Nothing. I walked out past the clearing, boots crunching over crusted snow. I called out. I listened. Wind replied, but I knew what I'd seen. And worse, I knew who it had looked like. My mother. She was dead. Had been for months. I'd seen the body, signed the papers. But the figure, tall, slender, wearing the coat I remembered from my childhood, was her. I ran back to the cabin, slammed the door, bolted it shut. The trapdoor was uncovered. I hadn't touched it. And there, sitting at the top of the stairs, was another notebook. This one was not my mother's. The handwriting was different. Angular. Alien. The paper was wet. It stank like iron. Only one line was written inside. The snow was never meant to hide us. It was meant to keep you out. I started to cry then, for the first time since this began. Not loud, not sobbing, just quiet tears that I wiped away with the sleeve of my coat, like that might make them less real. I decided to end it. I gathered matches, lantern oil, every burnable thing I could find. I poured it over the floor, the walls, the trapdoor. I struck a match, held it. And then I heard the voice again, not from below this time, but from behind me. Emma. I turned. My mother was standing in the kitchen. Her skin was pale, lips blue, snow melting off her shoulders, even though the door hadn't opened. She smiled, but her eyes were wrong, too dark, too deep. I dropped the match. It fizzled out on the wet floor. Come downstairs, she said. You have to see what I saved for you. I shook my head, backed away. She moved closer. Emma, she said again, and the word, my name, seemed to bend in the air, like sound underwater. I kept it fed. I kept it warm, but it's not enough anymore. I ran, tried to, anyway, but the floor shifted beneath me, like stepping on logs. The boards gave way and I fell, not down the stairs, but straight through the wood, into blackness. I don't know how long I was unconscious. Could have been seconds. Could have been days. When I woke up, I was in a tunnel. Stone walls, dripping wet, carvings everywhere, the same spirals and symbols. I couldn't see the top of the shaft I'd fallen through. Only a faint light far, far above. And beneath me, in the dirt, were bones. Human, animal, twisted together, ancient. There were more notebooks scattered like breadcrumbs. Some had names I didn't recognize. Others were empty. One was open, mid-sentence. It dreams beneath the frost, and the dream is us. I heard it breathing. Not close, not yet, but coming. Something massive stirred in the darkness ahead. Wet, heavy, like roots dragging through mud. The tunnel pulsed with heat, and the stone itself seemed to sweat. I stumbled forward, flashlight weak and flickering, and then I saw it. A face. Not human, not quite. It was part of the earth fused into the rock like it had grown there. Eyes black and wide, mouth cracked open like a dry well. No movement, but the sense that if I blinked, it would open its eyes, and I would disappear into them. I should have run. I should have screamed, begged, prayed, anything but stand there and stare into that impossible face in the stone. But I couldn't move. Not because I was afraid, because it wouldn't let me. I felt it inside my mind. Not a voice exactly, but a presence pressing down like deep ocean water. Heavy, slow, ancient. Its thoughts weren't thoughts at all. They were images, feelings, hungers, and worst of all, recognition. It knew me. Not just my name, not just my face. It knew everything. My memories, my childhood, my pain, my mother. It showed me the day she died, not from illness, but down here, beneath the floor. Her face twisted in worship, her body kneeling before the stone like a daughter kneeling before a god. She hadn't left me the cabin to escape it. She left it to me so I'd join it. I staggered back, choking on air too thick to breathe. The walls of the tunnel pulsed again, that terrible heartbeat growing louder, and then it opened its eyes. Not eyelids. They split from the stone like a fruit tearing open. Wet, infinite, blacker than any dark I'd ever known. Looking through me, and I heard it speak. Not aloud, but inside. I remember the bloodline. You were promised. You were the last, and the door must never close again. I collapsed. My flashlight died. The dark rushed in, but the heat stayed. So warm. Like an embrace. I wanted to give in. I can admit that now. There was a moment, a breath, when I felt peace, because the thing beneath the snow didn't threaten to kill me. It wanted to be me. To wear my skin, my thoughts, to walk again in the world above through me. It had been waiting for generations. It had whispered to the first settlers. It had driven my ancestors to madness and devotion. They had built the cabin around it, a shrine masked as a home. And I was the final offering. But something inside me cracked, not from fear, from rage. I screamed into the dark, not a cry for help, but a denial. I remembered my mother's eyes, how she looked at me the last time I saw her, like she was already gone, like she had given up before she ever died. I wouldn't be like her. I crawled through the dirt, felt something cold and sharp, a jagged shard of the carved stone, broken, maybe from the quake that had dropped me here. I gripped it tight, and I carved into my own hand. Not out of madness, out of defiance. The blood hit the floor like sparks in gasoline. The tunnel lit up, not with fire, but with light. Symbols glowed along the walls. Spirals pulsed red, and the thing in the stone screamed, or something like it. I saw its face twist, cracking open wider. Teeth like roots. Eyes like voids. It recoiled from the blood, from mine. I realized something then. It didn't want me to bleed. It wanted me to belong. I wasn't just the final offering. I was meant to willingly give myself. But I hadn't, and that gave me power. I pressed my cut hand to the carvings. The whole tunnel shook. The air boiled, and far above, I heard the trapdoor slam shut. Then silence. Cold, clean, blessed silence. When I woke, I was lying on the living room floor, the boards beneath me intact. No sign of the trapdoor, no sign of the stone, just ash, fine and black, like burnt paper, scattered across the wood. Outside, the sun had returned. The Jeep started on the first try. I drove away without packing a single thing. And I never looked back. It's been 6 weeks. the snow melted early this year. Locals said it was the warmest winter the Rockies had seen in a decade. I haven't told anyone what happened, because what would I say? That I inherited a cabin built on a God-shaped wound in the earth, that my family kept it secret for centuries, that it tried to wear me like a coat? No, I just smile when they ask. Tell them the cabin wasn't for me, that I'm not much for snow. But at night, I dream of the symbols of that heartbeat of the stone. And sometimes, when it rains, when the wind howls through the trees just right, I swear I hear my mother's voice, calling me from beneath. If you inherited a remote cabin in the Rocky Mountains, would you stay the night? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this descent into supernatural horror, like and share the video to keep the darkness alive. Until next time, stay warm. And stay watching the snow, because something's always beneath.